Thanks for joining us today. We have an amazing event scheduled today, bringing together community dance practitioners and scholars from around the dance community to discuss the health benefits of African diaspora dance for college students. But before we begin by introducing our panelists, I would like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Kemuel Ben Yehuda. I'm a third-year doctoral student at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm also a visiting scholar at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Institute at Rutgers. My interests lie in HBCU museums and curatorial activism. I'm also a dance student at Urban Movement Arts located in Center City, Philadelphia. Practicing dance at Urban Movement Arts has brought me immense joy, along with a creative community to express myself. Throughout the course of the deadly pandemic and tumultuous racial violence we all witnessed and continue to witness. This event was inspired by the many conversations I've had with Vince, Beverly, and many of the dance educators at Movement Arts, Ricky, Laurel, and Ron Wood. This event was inspired by the African dance community's dedication to dance, health, and personal well-being. But before we begin and go any further, I would like to thank my co-organizer, Brandy, the Director for Programs and Communications at the Proctor Institute, for working with me to put this event together. Also our panelists for the many talks with me and the Proctor Institute, and Mary Beth Gassman for sponsoring and supporting this event. I'm just going to take a brief moment here to share with you the work that the Proctor Institute for Leadership does. It's a national center that focuses on issues of leadership, equity, and justice within the context of higher education. It brings together researchers, practitioners, and community members to work toward the common goals of diversifying leadership, enhancing equity, and fostering justice for all. The purpose of this event is to highlight the benefits of African diaspora dance, but also to raise awareness around mental health issues facing the college student community during the pandemic. Since the COVID-19 pandemic began in March of 2020, 1 in 4 young people have been reported to seriously contemplate suicide, while in some states, suicide rates among Black people have doubled. And in the Asian American community, we have seen an uptick in violence in their communities around the country. These various narratives show that the college and minority student population are not immune to health challenges. Therefore, colleges must listen and be more responsive to their students' health needs. As they return to campus in the fall, even provide additional layers of support if that is what is necessary to maintain their students' well-being. Western counseling and meditation are often the first lines of support offered in college institutions. However, African diaspora dance and other social dances are rarely offered in their curriculums to support students. We have 5 panelists with us today who each bring unique perspectives on the topic. After we hear from each of them in the discussion piece, we will follow this with a poll and a short Q&A. Now I'll introduce our panelists. First, Beverly Pittman's love for both dance and science started at a young age and followed separate tracks into adulthood. As a child, she engaged in social dancing that she saw in her community and marveled at the human anatomy transparencies in her family's World Book Encyclopedia. As an adult, she has studied many African-based dance forms personally while investigating the pathophysiology of diabetes and heart disease professionally. When the Surgeon General's office released a report on physical activity and health, the two tracks merged and Beverly pursued her PhD in kinesiology to use dance to address the health disparities in the African-American community. She is committed to improving African-American health, and her new organization, We Shall Be Moved, are making strides toward her goals. Number 2, Thomas F. DeFrance is a professor at Duke University and specializes in African diaspora aesthetics, dance historiography, and the intersections of dance and technology. Dr. DeFrance received the 2017 Outstanding Research in Dance Award from the Dance Studies Association. Dr. DeFrance acted as a consultant for the Smithsonian Museum of African American Life and Culture, contributing concepts and a voiceover for a permanent installation on Black social dance that opened with the museum in 2016. DeFrance directs Slippage Performance Culture Technology, a group that explores emerging technology and live performance applications and believes in our shared capacity to do better and engage creative spirit for a collective good that is anti-racist, proto-feminist, and queer affirming. His books include the edited volume, Dancing Many Drums, Excavations in African American Dance, and Dancing Revelations, Alvin Ailey's Embodiment of African American Culture and Black Performance Theory, co-edited with Anita Gonzalez. Crystal Frazier is a native of New Jersey. She received a Master of Fine Arts degree in choreography from Jacksonville University. She is a freelance choreographer and currently an assistant professor of dance at Point Park University, Pittsburgh. Crystal is a former senior member of the world-renowned Rennie Harris Pure Movement. And if you don't know, Harris Pure Movement is the first and longest running hip hop dance touring company in the country and the world.
Yeah.
Performed in tour and internationally, including in the Middle East and Central Asia as a US cultural ambassador. She is also the former co-founder of Montage, an all-female hip hop dance company based in Philadelphia. Woo-hoo!
That's what I'm talking about.
Is a Philadelphia-based artist and educator. He is an alumnus of Rennie Harris Pure Movement also. He has worked in various artist sectors, ranging from popular entertainment to experimental theater. He is the founder and director of Move Makers Philly and Urban Movement Arts, teaching kids and adults a variety of dance styles emerging from the African diaspora. Johnson's performance group, Philly Kerplop, is a professional dance and music ensemble that performs original material with the philosophy that the performing arts best serves audiences when content maintains a precise confluence between entertainment, intellectual stimulation, fantasy, and reality. And last but not least, which means the best, India Bernardino was born and raised in New Jersey and currently resides in Philadelphia. She has trained with acclaimed dancers such as Marcus Tucker, Andrew Ramsey, and Clyde Evans Jr. She is the founder of Great on Skates, a creative startup fused with rhythm skating and roller dance that she cites her father, the renowned skater Master Jazz, inspiring. India is a seasoned performer, choreographer, and dance instructor. India has extensive knowledge in the foundations of all 5 styles of hip hop.
Whoa.
Dance terminology. India's high intensity, energy level, and down-to-earth personality inspires her many students to learn more. Her universal love for dance allows her to respect not only hip hop, but all styles of dance, culture, and art. Now that we've introduced all of our panelists, you're probably wondering, what exactly is African diaspora dance? So this is a question that I will kick over to Thomas to ask if he doesn't mind tackling.
Thank you so much, Kim, and thank you to everyone for gathering together. I light a candle to ground our thinking alongside each other, and I'm broadcasting from what we call Durham, North Carolina, on the ancestral grounds of the Tuscarora, the Eno, and the Shakori nations. I bring those people into our conversation along with my grandmother, who was my first dance teacher. Granny used to say to me, I'd say, Granny, how you doing? She'd say, still kicking, not high. So what is African diaspora dance? It's how we remember ourselves. It's that laugh and that excitement. It's a way for us to have a technology of feeling that allows us to recognize our Blackness in diaspora. They are actual movements that we have carried forth through the horrors of the slave trade, through the desperations of living in the Caribbean before we were carted off into the south of the US, many of us. But then it's also our celebration and our ability to create strategies, survival strategies and emergent strategies of expression, as Kemuel yourself noted before in your opening remarks that dance gives us a way to explore expression. And African diaspora dance are dances that allow us to align the political, the social, the family, the physical, and the desiring and the intellectual all together in this amazing sort of constellation of a possibility. African diaspora dance are dances that remember themselves from the continent, from the motherland. They are the dances that are from Madagascar and from Burkina Faso and from what we now call Senegal and South Africa. But they are the dances of our ancestors and our future, one and the same. Sankofa, we dance forward as we look back. They are the dances of possibility. And they are particular dances that attract people because they are incredibly fly, they're incredibly flamboyant and energetic, and they are, again, to repeat your language, technologies of feeling. They are ways for us to understand how to feel differently and usually how to feel better. And maybe we can tussle with what we mean when we say we want to feel better through our dancing, but they are definitely dancing. African diaspora dance is a technology that understands itself as a possibility that is social, political, sacred, and familial all at the same time. I think I'll stop there.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think that just is a nice segue into the question on what are the health benefits of African diaspora dance. And I would like to ask Beverly if she wouldn't mind responding to that question, kind of building off what Thomas just shared with us.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me here. I am joining you from the unceded land of the Lenni Lenape, which is now known as Philadelphia, and I am very happy to be here. The benefits of African diasporan dance are pretty much the same in a universal sense as any type of physical activity. So I'm going to start with the universal benefits of health benefits of physical activity and then narrow it down into the specific benefits of African diasporan dance. First of all physical activity serves some purpose for the body. And it's generally divided into two categories: those physical activities that increase skills and those physical activities that increase health. And there is some overlap between the two, but in terms of how they are approached, they have very different definitions. My focus is on the health benefits of physical activity, and they include cardiorespiratory endurance, muscle strength and muscle endurance, flexibility, and body composition. And of those five, cardiorespiratory endurance is the most important for health, simply because our cardiorespiratory system, which is basically our heart and our lungs, serves the entire body. However, it does not function in a vacuum. In order for the cardiorespiratory system to work the way it should and the way it needs assistance from the musculoskeletal system, and the musculoskeletal system needs assistance from the flexibility of our bones and joints. So it all happens in a systems kind of way. So just going back to the cardiorespiratory system for a minute, that system uses the largest muscles in the body, which is the gluteus maximus, the hamstrings, and the quads. In order for physical activity to be cardiorespiratory, it has to use those muscles rhythmically and continuously for at least 15 minutes. If you're moving and you're not at the 15-minute mark and you're not using those muscles, you're in an anaerobic system, which basically means you're using the muscles for fuel. Once you reach that cardiorespiratory state, you can continue in that state for a long period of time, as long as the muscles are moving rhythmically. If they stop moving rhythmically, or if they're not as intense as they were at one point, you switch back over into the muscle system again. So it's a funny kind of way of this back and forth between the two. But also, the more the muscles are engaged, the more the cardiorespiratory system is working. And the best example I can give you in a universal sense is the difference between walking and running. Both are cardiorespiratory activities. Both use the largest muscles in the body, but the difference is in the intensity. And you can see what happens with your body and how that intensity changes when you move from something like walking to something like running. When you start running, the larger muscles are engaged. They're engaged more intensely, and you see the cardiorespiratory effects of that. Two that you see, number one, your heart rate speeds up. This is your body saying, okay, we need more fuel. So the heart is going to kick in and provide that more fuel. But to do that, you need the assistance of the lungs. And that's why when you start moving from walking to running, you breathe harder, because it's saying we need this cardiorespiratory system to work together to provide more energy, more fuel for the muscles. There's also a crossover. Those are physiological benefits, but once you actually get to this point, you see a crossover not only from a physiological benefit, but also from an emotional benefit. And that's because when all of this is working together, your hormones, the endorphins kick in.
Mm-hmm.
And India, you're relating to that. You feel that, huh?
Them
Yeah, that's
endorphins,
what happens. When you dance, or especially, I don't know if you've ever heard of the runner's high, but runners, when they run for a long period of time, they get this feeling of euphoria. And that's basically what it is. It's the movement of the body, the physiological movement kicks in and releases the endorphins, and that's what creates what's called the high. This happens the more you engage those large muscles, the more of a feeling you get with that. Now, that's all. Any kind of cardiorespiratory activity will do this. African diaspora dance does it in another way, physiologically and emotionally. First of all, African diaspora dance from a physiological perspective is done in a different position than some other dancing or other activities such as walking or running. First of all, the feet are flat on the floor and the knees are bent. Okay. In addition to that, the body is bent forward, so you're no longer straight up and down. You're more in a crouching position or a moving forward position. And I think about when Vince teaches his classes and he constantly talks about the pelvis working and moving the upper body forward. That is a difference that you see in diasporan dance that you do not see in other types of dancing. So with that, you also have another element introduced. With the body moving forward and undulating, you've got the flexibility of the spinal cord. So that increases the amount of flexibility. You've got the amount of muscle strength and muscle endurance increase, and they all increase the cardiorespiratory endurance that you're experiencing. So it all comes together and you've got this whole thing. Then you've got the culture on top of that. So that's where we switch over into the emotional benefit of it. You have something that's really giving you a lot of physiological benefit for people of African descent who are accustomed to this movement. And as Thomas said, this has continued, followed us from the continent to here, and it still goes on now. So you have that memory in terms of a muscle sense, you have that memory in terms of an emotional sense, and it is something that feels very familiar. So with that familiar, you increase the likelihood of participation, and you also get more stress relief. Something else that was said earlier, with African diasporan dance, you also use a different type of music. So the music is familiar. So again, you've got that emotional thing going on, and you're increasing all of this, and it's coming together and really benefiting people who come from that culture and are also very accustomed to the physical activity. I'm going to stop there for that one.
Beverly, I remember you and I having a conversation about the framing of this event. Yes. And you had some interesting perspectives on that. And I was wondering if you can kind of expound about that a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. I love to. And I really been kicking myself. It's like, don't go off on a tyrant, because I went off on a tyrant with you when we talked about this. This is a passion of mine. When Kim and I first talked about this panel, and when I first saw the title of the panel, all kinds of alarms went off for me. The therapeutic benefits. When you say therapy to me, it makes me want to scream, because therapy is another word for treatment. And that's because we exist in the Western world, we exist in a sick care system and not a healthcare system.
Ooh.
We do nothing to
Preach.
benefit people until after the fact, and then we try to treat it. What we should be doing is preventing these things from happening in the first place. So it's not a therapeutic benefit. From my research and what I do and what I teach, it is a preventive benefit. And for people of the African diaspora, if we were to function in a cultural way that we know, that is automatically preventive. It is not therapeutic. But it's not only in terms of dance. If you look at what has happened in this society and where we've taken music out of schools, we've taken physical education out of schools. We don't do anything to prevent stress or other issues such as racism. And then we've created these new categories called music therapy, dance therapy, mental health therapy. Everything is therapy. Do nothing. Let all of this stuff happen and then provide some therapy for it. If we were to do things in a preventive way, these things would not exist. If we were to function, if African Americans were to function in a diasporic way in terms of where we come from, we could remove a lot of what is causing problems, especially stress. And we would not have to have therapy. We would have prevention, we would have a wellness system, and everybody would function better because of it. And I'm going to stop there because Kim, you know how I went off when we talked about this, and I don't want to do that, but this is my passion. We're living in a sick care system and we're not living in a healthcare system. And I will add one more thing to it. Physicians get no training about physical activity and its benefits in medical school. Medical schools do not teach prevention. If you go to a physician and if you look at what you see on television, you see two things. Think about how many times you see a commercial for some medication. If we were from another planet and came here and looked at television and looked at the commercials, we'd say, these people are just all sick. They're just all almost near dead. I mean, everything is like, treat this, treat that, treat that. We don't need all of that, but physicians are trained to do two things, either medication or surgery. Our medical schools do not train people for prevention, and that is a problem for me. And I'm going to step down off of my stand. I'm stopping right now because I could go on.
I left it in there because I really wanted for everyone to hear your perspectives on this. Yeah. And I'm thinking back now, I'm like, I actually should have named this the preventive, like. I told you. African diaspora dance, but it didn't have the same ring to it. So I just, left it with the therapeutic benefits.
I'm glad you did. It allowed me to rant about something that's a pet peeve of mine.
No, this is something you're very passionate about. And I think it's important that you bring this forward. I want to just kind of pivot and move and go back to Thomas, if he wouldn't mind really talking a bit about how the aesthetic aspects of African diaspora dance has been separated from the health benefits and why that's been done and by whom.
Yeah, okay, there you go. And I know our other panelists will have things to say about this in really important ways too. So I just appreciate the point of view that was brought forth before. Our dances, those of us who are of an African diaspora, we know our dances are life-giving. They are healing dances. They are technologies of the soul and the spirit. And so all of the sort of qualities of movement that were referred to, the get down quality, give me that knee bone bent, you better be able to work the spine and work the back and understand the shoulders, like the way that these movements actually sort of are foundational to a healthy sort of physicality and interaction. Well, we have the history of what Sheila Mbembe calls the three-legged stool of slavery, colonialism, and apartheid. I mean, what happened to us in our dances is we were separated from our healthiness a long time ago, generations ago, but we never stopped dancing. The dancing will not be denied. We make music and we make song and we make dance because it is a place of expression. So, but then the other thing that happened is the marketplace. And that's where our friends who are working in hip hop can really help us. The marketplace has really strict sort of terms of how it wants things to be separated from their capacity or their possibility. So we need to be really aware of the medical marketplace, as Ms. Pittman just offered a moment ago, but then also the commercial marketplace for dance that separates us from our healing capacities as artists. And we are all artists. One thing about African diaspora culture is we believe in art making. It's like air and water. We believe in it. And we need it, we use it, we do it all the time. We look at our little nieces and nephews or children, and we like follow their creativity to understand how they're maturing. But then we get into school systems and stop that for lots of reasons that have to do with, you know, all the stuff that we're rising up again now, constantly. Black lives do matter, but our taking care of each other and ourselves through the dance is super important. So no surprises, the separation between dance and its healing capacities and its capacities to engender a Black commons or Black communication or Black world making, Black life, Black love, all of that stuff keeps trying to be taken away from us, but we're not going for it. We dance in our protests. We dance at weddings. We dance at celebrations. We dance, we have funeral dances. We have dances we do to celebrate or mark the passing of our kin into ancestry. So all of these things are still happening in our worlds, even as marketplace and maybe medical place are telling us they're not. So I don't know how to answer your question, but maybe it gives us a place to work from.
No, that's, you added a lot of things there for us to think about. And I think that's a nice segue into our next question, and particularly in a collegiate like environment. We know these benefits are there. People of African descent has used dance in a number of ways to overcome many different challenges. And we know that in the collegiate space, students are faced with many different stresses, as I like presented earlier. So it baffles me. I don't know if you could kind of speak on this a little bit more, yourself and Crystal, on why haven't more colleges advocated for African diasporic dance interventions? We know that, as I said before, Western counseling and Eastern meditation tend to be the first lines of support offered to college students. But we rarely hear dance offered as a, Beverly doesn't like therapeutic, but we'll say, but I'm gonna say therapeutic because it's just the easiest way for me to kind of, you know.
You're forgiven, Kim.
But I'm just curious, maybe Crystal can go first here.
I would say, you know, Eurocentric has always been, content has always been the forefront. You know, if you're talking about genres as in ballet or as modern. And for me, my forte is hip hop, of course. And looking at hip hop dance forms and how long it has taken to even be a part of the collegiate world, it's a little crazy. And part of that comes from, and I still think today, they still don't view hip hop dance forms as a technique. It's just this thing on the side, even though there are colleges now, universities and colleges that are now starting to open doors a little bit more and inviting other cultures into their curriculum. But even as a hip hop educator, it's still seen as an elective. And very small number of university and colleges are allowing it to be a part of their curriculum. The same thing with African when it comes to tap, or even with jazz. They'll teach jazz, but rarely do you see them teach the social dance of jazz, where true authentic jazz began. And you know, you keep questioning, like, why are these barriers? We're still going through barriers to open these doors. And it's like, why? Because all the movement that we learn, it comes from the root of African movement, or it comes from something from our ancestors. and you have children that are, or I don't want to say children, well, children and young adults who are missing that part of their culture in the studio, or even in the history making. Somehow, even in jazz, they'll go to these fathers, but they're not digging deeper to where it all exists. So I'm hoping that universities are now opening up, now seeing how much we play a part in the commercial world, what you're seeing on TV, what you're seeing in Broadway, what you're seeing in videos, what you're seeing just anywhere, even in TikTok, wherever. You're seeing hip hop playing a big part in the dance community, in the dance world. And hopefully more universities will start not making Eurocentric the be all end all, that they'll find this happy medium that it should blend. There shouldn't be one higher up than the other. Everybody has their own body and way of moving. So I feel like we need to connect more to help those who are in these different cultures and to relate to the movement. And why do I move like this? Why do I do this like this? But if we're not educating them in the African diaspora dance, and even those who are not a part of that, but are invited into our community to understand how the body moves in a different way than a Eurocentric way. I hope I answered that in somewhat of a way, revolving way.
No, that was great. I don't know if Thomas would like to add to what Crystal just shared with us.
I'll be brief and just, like hold that up, lift that up. And there are, I work with a lot of graduate students now, and there are many of y'all folks coming out of Rennie's company and IllStyle and Peace and other companies that are really finding their way into these circuits of academia. I mean, I've been a professor for a really long time, and so it warms my spirit to see so many people finding the credentialing. And, that's just part of the system. You need the credential in order to take the position. But those positions are more and more and more coming into being because we're starting to share this information like this event right now, to share the information so that people can understand that it matters. And, young people don't really want to take modern dance. There's no natural audience for modern dance. There is a natural audience, if you will, of people who love hip hop and love African diaspora dance forms, because these are the stories of our families. Mm-hmm. And that's, that's a really important distinction. Modern dance grew up in the colleges, like that's where it grew up. So it actually has no natural audience except for colleges. And that's one of the reasons that colleges have been so protective of it, because it belongs to the colleges. It's like no little child grows up wanting to do modern dance, but you go to college and then you take modern dance classes. You're like, oh, I want to be a modern dancer. But our forms, African diaspora dance forms, are embedded in our families, our politics, our social lives, our sexual identities and orientations. It's all in there. So, we're starting to get a little bit more educated in higher education slowly.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I wonder how does that impact especially minority students who are coming from communities into the dominant culture? Oftentimes they're predominantly white institutions, and there's a lot of talk about supporting students and providing them with safe spaces. And I'm curious of how dance is discussed. I rarely ever hear dance discussed as a safe space or as an inclusive space. In the time that I've been in higher education, I haven't really come across that. So it's pretty interesting that that's the case. I'm just wondering if there's something to be said to that.
I could say something very briefly. Again, I want to make more space for other panelists because you have an amazing array of folks on this call. But as Black people, our labor is always devalued, and that's our history. In the sort of Eurocentric paradigm is that we do the work and we're not paid for it. Well, we do the work of soul survival, but also soul healing through our art making and our dancing. Like it's already in there, but it is way devalued. Mm-hmm. So and then there's one other piece to it, which is that these are really forms of progressive democracy. So if you like doing stepping, you want a step master, but usually the step master wants to come from the organization. So, sometimes J-setters who are dancers, who are working in predominantly Black institutions will hire a coach. But a lot of our dance forms, we actually teach each other. Well, that doesn't fit into the capitalist, higher ed system. The higher ed system wants a master, someone who knows more and stands over and keeps people out. But our forms actually are much more about the circle and sharing ideas among each other. And we do need y'all to be on faculty now. Don't get me wrong. Y'all need to come into these faculties and help young people, figure out how to make choices physically that help them, find their way. But it's a different model. It's not about a kind of looking down from above. It's about the cipher. We need the circle, and we ask questions of each other in the cipher. And so our forms of making dances tend to be much more communal. And that's another reason they don't really fit into higher ed, which is based on these models of an old person who knows more than anybody else. Not elders, yes, but this idea that there needs to be an old white man who studied the thing for a long time, and that's how we all learn. So that's another thing to think about, like what's the system of transmission for the form?
I can speak to that if you can give me a minute here. That's the very reason I left academia. When I decided to go back to school for the PhD, there was all of this excitement around me being there. Oh, she's here, she's going to do all of this wonderful stuff. And over time, what I came to understand is that people were happy for me to be there to the extent that it benefited them. She's going to teach us how to work with Black people. And it's like, no, that's not what this is about. That's not what I'm trying to do here. And I went from school to school and the same thing kept happening. And I finally just left. I said, if I am going to serve the community, I need to be in the community doing what I trained to do, doing what I know from childhood through adulthood, incorporating that with what I learned through academia and trying to make a difference. And I left because I just could not make the difference that I wanted to make in academia.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, I've had my own interesting interactions in academia as a doctoral student, trying to bring different perspectives and receiving resistance at times. And that also played a part in me wanting to seek out other forms of creative expression and to deal with those emotions and how to kind of transmit that in the community. Because oftentimes the same struggles that I made, people think, oh, you go to you're in the University of Pennsylvania, you have it made. They don't know.
Right.
They don't know.
It's a different type of struggle in an institution. So when you find a community-based organization such as the Urban Movement Arts or Great on Skates, and then you're able to process that through creative expression, it's just like a breath of fresh air. And so I would like to just pivot to India and Vince now, and just really talk about the work that they're doing and the types of support that they're doing. And when you talk about the circle that Thomas mentioned, and there's the type of things that they've encountered in their practice and working with students. And I think they have a lot to teach universities who are offering different types of therapies, but are not partnering with organizations such as Urban Movement Arts and Great on Skates. I think it would be great if we saw these organizations working with students, especially as these organizations often are struggling with getting representation on their therapy staffs. And I think it's going to remain like that for years to come. So I would like to just get a sense of your perspective based on the community-based perspective on this topic.
So who wants to go first, me or India?
You can go first, Vince.
You can flip a coin.
I don't, well, first off, I want to say thank you for including me in this. It's an honor to be here. I'm really excited to see Crystal. Crystal has been an inspiration, mentor, someone who I looked up to for many years and had the privilege of sharing the stage with as a very spry and unrefined young person. But Crystal, you're an angel, and thank you for all of the things you've done for me in my development as a dance professional. I have the privilege of being here with many other friends. India and I work together, every day. We're working together, and then Beverly and Kem, you're amazing community members, and we're part of that circle together that was mentioned earlier. And I'll even go to Mr. DeFrance. I spent probably a whole semester inside dancing many drums as I completed my my independent project in college, some years ago. So I know that book well, and I always would think to myself, who is this Thomas DeFrance guy? It's nice to put a face to the words and the wisdom and knowledge. So there's so many interesting points that have been brought up. The first, I know, Kem, you've asked me and India to talk about what's going on in our sector, but I can't help but be motivated to just give my input on what I hear you guys discussing in regards to the academic sector. I'm just curious to know within this conversation and in this meeting right now, how many undergraduates are actually in the meeting. As I scroll through, a lot of screens are not showing the people, but I get the impression that there's a lot of professionals that are attending this workshop right now. So for me, I think that's an important thing to identify. And then who is this discussion for? Who is this content for? In regards to African diasporic dances, I think it's also important to identify what it is that we're talking about, because that's anything from Lindy Hop to hip hop to rumba. There's so many different formulations that refers to. I think I get the impression just through the discussion that there's been a lot of emphasis put on hip hop, and in regards to hip hop is now, it's still evolving. It's part of the social language. It's a vernacular that we all speak and understand. And with that regard, I think that college students have a lot of access to hip hop as a practice. Now, hip hop being framed in a way where it is it's more certain that it will impact someone in a positive way in regards to their health benefits, then I think that takes a specific type of curating. I personally I'm someone who kind of believes more in personal agency, and it's up to the individual to find their pathway of practicing whatever it is that they do, whether it's an athletic form or an artistic form. I don't know if it should be up to the universities. I think in particular when discussing something that is as alive culturally.
Dance is working on coming back. Would you like to kind of add anything?
Me? Look at me, I'm all hype. Hey, Crystal. Hey, everybody that's on here. I'm excited to be a part. I feel like, I get hyped, especially when we talk about dance, hip hop, African diaspora, being Black, being all that, like being stylish. I get like hype, like, all right, let's go, let's have the conversation. I came into dance, like, not being professionally trained in a school, but basically like, I lived in a poor neighborhood, grew up in Camden, and there were community centers around all the time that were offered, for free that we can go to. And in the community centers, they would have double dutch, they would have skating, and they would have dance. And growing up, I was bullied like my whole life. So every time I would just look forward to going to the community center so that I can go dance. Like, I just want to go there so I can go dance. I couldn't explain the high, but I knew like something clicked and I just went fire on, you know. I want to be here. This is the element that I want to be in, you know, all the time. And then as I got older and I got to high school and I moved around in different areas, I moved to like a Washington Township, which is the more predominantly Caucasian area. And I seen like, you know, I was suffocating because they didn't have dance. They were not relatable to anything that I loved. Like, you know, like I was speaking to the students there and they just couldn't relate to like, even just like in Janet Jackson or like Michael Jackson. And I'm like, you don't like them? Like, you don't understand? Like they're fire, you know, like they couldn't relate to anything. So I would act like I was dying every time I would come home from school. And I was like, what's wrong? I'm like, it's just too many of them that don't know me and I can't go to school. Like, so I would like sneak and catch a train back to Camden. Like I'm pushing back, I'm going to the hood, I'm gonna go dance, you know, like, and a lot of those things that, you know, took place, me sneaking out, dancing and just like staying up late when it's dark and putting the music on, having my headphones on, just going, because I knew it cured my depression. It made me feel better. I wasn't sad, even though I was by myself. I felt like it was like I was with myself and I was good, you know. So after that, I met a group of great people like Vince, and I grew up in Face the Flave Dance Entertainment, and I found them at like a gathering. And I was just dancing. I thought I was Janet. I had my little, you know, my little vest on, baggy pants. I was like, I'm out here. And they invited me to come into their rehearsals and study with them and practice with them and learn like hip hop. And that's when I seen Crystal and I seen Rennie, and they like schooled me on a whole nother planet world of dance. I'm like, wait, this is really a thing outside of this that's big, and you can make like you can have it as a career. It could be a living. Like you can inspire other people. So ever since then, God has just blessed me with being surrounded by a great universe of stars of people that are just like, they're there for a reason. I learned so much. Coming in reference to being great friends with Vince. Vince, I learned a lot from. He's created a great space that's like judge free, everything free. Just like it's just a space. As soon as you walk into UMA, it's like it's about to go down. Like whatever you're doing, even if you're doing yoga, like it's about to go down in here because I'm in the building. Like that space that Vince created is such a free creative space where I do a lot of my best work and thinking, you know, there. During the pandemic, I kind of got depressed because everything went, of course, viral. And I'm one of them people that like, I need to be in person. I need to feel the energy. I need to be in a mirror. I need to see behind me. Like, you know, like, so during the pandemic, I kind of like went down a little bit for a few months, but then coming back into dance and just like staying motivated through Vince and other great friends and people like that. You know, when you're Black, you're like, you're gonna make it work. I'm like, well, we about to take this outside, like we did back in the day. Like we gotta do something. I don't care about this. We want to take it outside and step away from each other and still dance. We need ciphers, we need circles, we need drums, we need, you know, all of these things that are going on. And then, you know, of course, now you see that I'm into the skating. All I did was just incorporate my dance ability on the skates, which is nothing new. I get it from my father, who's been he's 60 something now, but he's been skating in the clubs, just like bum rushing places that you know you're not supposed to be in with your skates. And he's like, I'm VIP, you know. So I used to think it was very embarrassing, but now I want to do the same thing. Now I'm like, oh no, we're going in there and we're just expressing our love for it, just dancing on the skates, just keeping the culture, just keep, you know, elevating it, letting people see that there are so many different aspects of like dance and so many different aspects of different categories of whatever you want to do that make you feel good, that make you feel free, that make you feel uplifted, that takes you out of depression. It's the preventative care that you were talking about. Like before you go down, like before I went down during the pandemic, I'm like, no, we are taking this outside. Like I'm calling some people. I know people that will come together with a boombox that has no problem, you know, that's not scared. And we're taking it out there. So it's like right now, I feel like during this pandemic, we become more creative with dance and people are seeing things because they're streaming it on TikTok. And now they want to get more involved in us and what we're doing. So they're like, oh, I see this before that. I think everyone's too busy. They couldn't pay attention to things that were going on. But now they see African dance. They really, really, really see hip hop. They really see different things going on and they want to get involved and they just want to be like a lot of younger people are like, oh, I see this, I think I could do this. They could just click instantly and learn different things. So hopefully we're around to keep inspiring people to just, you know, come into the cipher. I call it a cipher. I'm not really a choreographer. I put that there. I can make up some steps, but I'm really just like a person that's like, I just want to come dance. I want to just come party.
Yeah.
I just want to come party. Like, just come to class. We're gonna have fun. Okay.
I remember you've been out in the community throughout you and Ricky and
yeah,
on your team, right? Skating out in the community.
Skating outside and also dancing outside. Vince has an extensive program with Urban Movement Arts where the classes are outside. Like there's a house cipher that happens on a Friday, and there's about 25 to 30 people that come to that outside at Park, and that's going to start taking place again on Fridays, I believe. And they come out and we just blast the music and we just jam. If the speaker dies, we pull the car up, open the car doors, and we still have another 30 minutes. Like, let's go. Like, I learned a lot from that experience, just making sure that I make those things at Clark Park on Fridays, because there are a lot of people. Stop, go back. There are a lot of sorry, my kids. There are a lot of students from UMA, right? And they've learned that are not African American, and I've seen them getting it on the concrete. And I was sitting there watching, and I was like, they just, what? Oh no, I better come out my shell even more, because they were so free. They were like, this provided this space. I can't explain it. I've never seen people who you wouldn't think that would dance like that and groove like that and move like that so freely to the music. Like, is a space in Philly which is UMA, that people are able to come to and be like, yo, I live here, like in the dance, in the zone, in the vibe, you know.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have to definitely get out there.
Yeah, on Friday, please.
But I haven't actually participated in that event yet. Part of the reason, unfortunately, is because the pandemic happened.
Hey guys,
our mask on.
I got knocked out. I'm very sorry. The internet, something happened. I've never been knocked off of a Zoom call, so there was some sort of energy. Anyway, I'm going to just pick up off of India and just say, because she's really laid the foundation of what I was hoping to say, is that it really does, the whole discussion about access to diasporic practices, it's there. And especially when we're talking about things that are present and now, such as roller skating or hip hop, it's just a matter of going out into a community and connecting. I don't necessarily know what an institution would do to make it more available. I think the classes that Crystal mentioned are for individuals who are looking for a certain type of training that correlates with their studies of humanities or their pursuit as a dance professional. And that's very different work than providing someone with, let's just say, the preventative solutions that are innate within what we've been talking about, the dance forms that we've been talking about. So I'll just make it quick and say that I don't know if it's as complicated as what we're making it out to be. I think that any person who's working in trying to provide someone with different forms of intervention for mental or physical health, they would say just find some sort of a physical outlet. And like Beverly said, it can be anything. The work to get people involved with vernacular forms, cultural forms, subcultures, ritualistic forms, that is about community and it's about the individual. And I think India, what she's been discussing is stuff that really is out there, and folks really just have to have the desire to get to it. And I think universities do very good jobs with posting things that are going on in their communities. I remember when I was in college, there was always a listing of different things that you could participate in. It's just a matter of whether or not any particular individual has the conviction to go out and do that for themselves. So I'll step off.
Yeah. Thanks, Vince. I appreciate those insights as well. I think that that's true, but I also think in some cases it might not be true, because in terms of university settings, at least some of the settings I've been in, students are oriented into a university setting. And when they're oriented into a university setting, sometimes they're coming from all around the country. Sometimes they're not from, to say, Philadelphia. And if during the orientation, as they're being oriented into the institution, they're being told that certain communities might not be safe, all students may not be willing to go out to pursue certain activities in the community if the perception is that the community isn't safe. So I think that we also can't factor out that that is also a barrier sometimes that some students have to contend with, especially a young 18-year-old who's coming from maybe another part of the country that doesn't have much diversity. So sometimes for some students, being on a university is the safe space. In some parts of the communities, they may not be perceived as safe. So I think that sometimes, access to other forms of expression, students do want to pursue those things, but they may not always know about those activities. I mean, I can say, like, I found out about urban movement arts. I'm originally from New York City, and I didn't find out about urban movement arts through a listserv or any type of promotions. I found out about it through a conversation with someone at Revolution Taco on Walnut Street, which was a face-to-face conversation. And it just was like, I was getting a taco and I saw him, he was bobbing his head while he was making my taco. And I said, what are you listening to? And, I told, and I think I was coming from another dance studio. And that's how we started up a conversation. And then he told me about urban movement arts. He said, hey man, you should go to urban movement arts. The place you're going is whack. You need to go there. So he already had this like knowledge about, I'm not going to say the dance studio, but he had this knowledge about the community that I didn't have because I was new to Philadelphia and I met him on the street. So I'm not trying to say that all students are afraid to be in the community, but I think that there is, to say that's not a reality in a university, I think it is in some cases, not in all cases, but in some cases.
I hear that. I'll quickly, and I agree with you that universities can be containers in a lot of ways, but there's a lot that universities, we can point the finger at them for, but then also, just in scrolling through this meeting, I saw Cheryl Dodds, who is a professor at Temple and is extremely supportive in creating access to breakdance culture there. And I'll even say that, on Temple University, there's a breakdance club. So if anyone wants to get down with breakdancing, they can do that there. I went to Villanova, which is commonly referred to as Vanilla Nova. It's probably one of the wider places on the East Coast. No, I'm joking. That's a little harsh. But in my freshman dorm room or dorm building, that's where I met my current colleague, B-Boy Metal, Mark Wong. He went to Haverford, which was down the street from Villanova, and there was a breakdance club in my dorm building, and there were other dance clubs. So I think, as much as I understand some of the impulses driving the discussion today, I do really, I might be playing devil's advocate, but I think that oftentimes on campuses, these things are really, they're around. And it's just a matter of the individual having some resourcefulness and agency to sniff them out.
Thanks, Vince. I definitely agree with parts of what you're saying. And I think what this conversation is going to drive is to drive the conversation amongst all of us is to just further share about all the great things that everyone is doing out in the community, and just further widen access, especially since so many students and practitioners, administrators, we've all been isolated. So, we're all going to be looking forward as soon as possible to participate in ciphers and in community, and to, let loose this pent up energy we all have. So I'm hoping that this discussion just, just shows more and more people out what types of communities are out there, subcultures in terms of dance are available for them to express themselves in ways that we might not have been able to. We haven't had access to clubs, we haven't had access to gyms, we haven't had dance spaces. So there's a lot of pent up energy in all of us. And we want all students, K through 12, we want college students to know that there's other healthy outlets for them to express themselves. So I would just like to move to our closing statements, because I know we are nearing 1:15. So I don't know if Vince, India, would you like to share with everyone any events, anything coming up?
We're always doing something.
Connect.
Right. In reference to skating, I run Great on Skates. You can find us on greatonskates.com or Instagram at Great on Skates. We're basically doing rhythm skating on rhythm dancing, on our skates. So they call it jam skating. It's rhythm skating. But most of the time I put it jam skating just to get the people to come in. And then when they come in, we teach them about rhythm. So those classes happen. Thank God to Vince. I just have to make an announcement about that. If it was not for Vince, there would not be a Great on Skates, because Vince was the first person who believed in me and said, have the skate classes in here, last year. And I was like, really? Vince was like, yeah, just do them in here. So it's because of Vince, honestly, that all this has blown up, because I was really sleeping on it. It was just an activity that me and Ricky would do all the time. So now Vince provided a space, and he provided so much support in what I was doing at UMA, and everything has started from there. Everything started from there. So you can look us up, and we have classes on Sundays at UMA. The last week will be this Sunday. After that, we move outside because it's going to be hot and no one wants to be inside when it's warm outside. So we move outside in April till September. And those classes are on Sundays, Mondays, and Thursdays. And there are workshops on Fridays, like specific workshops. But it's just rhythm skating, on the skates, we're rocking out, we're being Black, we're jamming, we're letting them understand, like, when you're rolling, you're flying, you're free. There's so many things to learn on skates. You just, even as I continue to practice, I keep learning things and learning different things and different elements. So that's basically in reference to skating. But Vince, talk about the studio.
Well, we have a studio, but I would, because I don't know where everybody is at in this conversation today. I'm happy to discuss with folks what we do, but if I think what Brother Kem has brought up is really important. And I encourage, if you're an educator, administrator, or even a student, to research what local organizations are in your communities and just try to get the word out more. Just because Kem is right, we've been locked away from one another, and not only that, organizations, institutions that promote wellness through movement, through cultural activity, probably are hurting right now. So I think it's an important thing for us to encourage those students to get out of their comfort zones and to get off campus, or to even just put a fire under our own butts to do that for ourselves. So I think that would be my best advice, and I'm thankful and honored to have the opportunity to share with everyone here.
Thank you, Vince. Thomas, Crystal.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Crystal,
You want me to talk? You want me to share?
As we close out?
Yes. At this moment, I'm still new in Pittsburgh. So I'm still getting my feet wet here and meeting people and studios. But as to your event today, what is happening is that I have been asked from several different universities to speak about hip hop culture and the dance forms, as well as my thesis work, which is gender identity and the hip hop dance culture, focusing from a female perspective. And the reason why I use that topic is because coming up in Rennie Harris, I was the only female for probably like 2 years or a couple years with all the men in the company. So I wanted to share my perspective, being the only female in the company. What is that like by interviewing other females throughout the world? What is it like to be trained by men or dancing or battling, whatever the case may be, or sharing, so forth, and sharing that perspective with my research. So that has led me to this week, I'm virtually with Wayne State. Last week, I was with University of Massachusetts. I'm here sharing with you today. And then I have 2 other universities that have connected me. And then I head out to Alabama for their dance festival to also speak about hip hop. So I am spreading the culture and the word as much as I can, as well at the university. And I'm gonna just keep doing it and spread the love, and hopefully I can reconnect with Pittsburgh community and do the same here and reaching out to the youth, and maybe possibly having to start my own if no one else is able to help me or guide me how to get through the mainstream. So I hope to really get my feet wet here in Pittsburgh, even though I'm a new Berg person. I don't know what they call it.
Gotta shine over there. Shine it.
Yes, I get my connections on. Point Park is keeping me busy.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everyone. Beverly, I'm going to transition over to the Q&A. Do you have anything else you would like to say?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We have a few minutes left, so I'm going to transition over to our Q&A. Brandy, if you're still there.
Yeah, I'm here. I can read the first 2 questions that we have. So someone said, thank you so much for this panel. I like the element of prevention instead of treatment. What would be the things to go for a prevention perspective through the practice of African dance?
I guess that's for me. Or
Yeah.
anybody wants to answer it?
You go ahead, Ms. Bev.
Okay, it's not difficult at all. It's just making physical activity a part of your daily life. When you start to do that, rather than looking at, oh, this is something that I have to make time for, and if something else comes up, this gets moved out of the way, that's not functioning in a preventive way. There are lots of things we can do preventively. When I look at all of the things related to heart disease, sedentariness is one big part of it. If you start moving, you automatically decrease the likelihood of heart disease. Stop smoking. Or in the case like me, it never made sense to me when I was young, looking at people who smoked, and I couldn't understand why they did that. I remember the first time puffing on a cigarette and just almost choking to death and saying, no thanks, that's not for me. So it's just knowing what things are good for you, knowing what things are not good for you, how to eat right, just doing all of these things. And physical activity is a part of that. For me, it's not, when there's a choice between being physically active and doing something else, it's likely for me that I'm going to say no to the something else. It's like, no, I can't do that because I have this class, or no, I can't do that because I have to work out. So that is a part of my life. Centering that in your life is the best way to be preventive.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, Brandy? Do we
Yeah.
have one more question?
Yeah, we have time for one more question. How can we get involved in the community? What are some of the next steps to further our knowledge on this topic?
I'll jump in there. Well, one, the obvious thing, is Google. Use technology. But there's nothing, you know, that really can be better than just talking with people. Like Kem mentioned, having a random conversation at Revolution Taco. I'm a big believer that if you're really in search of something, you'll will it into existence through the way that you navigate your surroundings. So either through your active searches or the conversations that you have. But generally, if you type into Google, or if you go on a social media and you're interested in finding a West African dance class, and there's going to be something wherever you are. That's my approach to something like that.
Randy?
That's the final question. I don't know if anyone else wants to answer that question.
Did we utilize the poll?
Yeah, it's launched. I can actually share the results now.
Oh, good.
Awesome. That's great. So I'm wondering, I guess this will bring us to the close of our event. I don't know if anyone else has anything else to say, but I'm going to move forward and just thank again Brandy, my co-organizer, our panelists, and all the attendees who were able to participate in this event. And also thank Mary Beth Gassman again for sponsoring and supporting this event. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. There will be an email sent out. And also, there will be a recording for the event sent out in about 2 weeks, right, Brandy?
A week or so.
A week or so, okay. Okay, everyone, thanks for an amazing event. I really enjoyed the discussion, and I hope you did too, and I hope you got something out of it. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Kim.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Kim. Bye, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.